everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Shut Up and Do It podcast. Please, you can come hang out with us while we talk about all things real estate and business with a focus on bringing you top quality speakers and topics, all who believe in a get it done manner. I'm your host, Nick Aalerud, principal with AA Real Estate Group in the greater Boston and New Hampshire areas and co-author of CompleteDealFlowSystem.com. And I have an amazing guest, as I always do, but this time it's a special one. This gentleman who's on the other side with me, besides the fact that he and I both have trouble growing facial hair, his name is Tim Hardeman. He is a real estate agent. He's 29 years old. He is crushing it in the Atlanta market with a team of 5 people, and he was just listed in the second year in a row in the top 5% of real estate agents nationwide. Tim Hardeman, holy cow, thanks for coming on the podcast, man.
Great to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Nick.
That's awesome, dude. We appreciate it. If you want to talk a little bit about your story first before we kind of dive into, life questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for that great intro. Again, my name's Tim Hardeman. I'm a real estate broker and agent in Atlanta, Georgia. Sell houses all over the place. Recently, I should say probably within the past couple of years, got into investing, which we'll talk a little bit about today as well. If you are on Instagram, pull out your phone right now and follow me, Tim_Hardeman. That's TIM_HARDEMAN. I post on there on the stories just about every single day, and it's always the crazy stuff that goes on in our office. It's a lot of fun.
Look at this guy promoting. He doesn't even tell us who he is yet. He's promoting his Instagram. I love it. All right, keep going, brother.
I'll tell you, we work in an office full of a lot of young people that are mainly in their 20s. And I'm a little bit crazy. I like to have fun when we're at work. So we do a lot of little fun contests and games and things like that. And I've heard people that watch the stories, they get some enjoyment out of them. So check me out, Tim_Hardeman. Let me jump into the story. So right now I'm in Atlanta. I'm in Georgia. I'm actually looking out the window on Peachtree Street, which is the main street that's cutting through Atlanta. Let me take you back. I'm 29 years old. Let me take you back a little bit. Back in 1995, maybe 1996, I was born actually in 1990 in a small country in Europe called Belarus. When I was, I think 5, maybe 6 years old, my mom wins a trip to come here and winds up basically working and cleaning toilets and babysitting little kids and makes just enough money to bring over my dad, myself, and my older sister. We got a little apartment over in the suburbs of Atlanta. And I remember we didn't have any furniture. Me and my sister, we had a mattress and we would sleep on the floor. It didn't even have like a bed frame. And my mom and my dad, they would sleep in the other room on the carpet. So it was definitely humble beginnings. And I learned at that point, just from watching my mom, she worked a ton. She probably worked 14-hour days, 7 days a week. And she did that to provide for our family. And I didn't realize it at the time, but now I think we all do. Once we get a little bit older, we learn to appreciate our parents more and more. And so I think back to that, and I'm like, man, how different would my life be if she didn't do that, if she did not bring the whole family over here? Another thing I think about a lot is just how lucky we are to be in the United States of America and how great this country is. It's absolutely amazing, and the opportunities that we have here. It's sad to see some people squander those gifts. Fast forward a little bit, I'm growing up in the suburbs of Atlanta and going to a pretty good school. My parents wound up buying a house and life's pretty good. I start playing football and lacrosse and all these other sports, start getting really close with a circle of friends, starting all the way from elementary school all the way through high school and college. And we would always hang out. We would, come in early and have practice in the morning. At our school, we'd hit morning workouts, then we would go to class together. Then afterwards, we'd have 2-day practice after class, and then we would hang out after that. So we got a really tight circle of friends. And after college, a lot of us still stayed in contact, but everyone's had their own stuff come up. So I go to Georgia Southern University and have probably a little bit too much fun, over there. Join a fraternity, still got really good grades, but was there more so to just have as much fun as I possibly could rather than trying to learn things that I could take away and use after college.
So, is that best practices, Tim? Is that best practices?
I will tell you, though, I don't regret any of that because the people that I met going to college there, and through the fraternity and everybody else that I met, those connections have been invaluable, and I wouldn't take it back for anything. So it was about my second year. I was a sophomore in college, and I'm dating this girl. She was a couple years older than me, and I got in trouble a handful of times before that, just for silly stuff like underage drinking and whatever else. And I remember my sophomore year, I got in trouble again. We went out. I think I had like a fake ID or something, but it's something silly. And after that, I was like, I need to get out of here. I need to get out of Statesboro. I need to get out of this college environment where I'm not really bettering myself. So I'll leave that school and I come back to Atlanta, start going to school basically in the city, and I'm living at home. I still see all my friends back in college partying and having a great time, and I'm still dating this girl. A lot of my buddies, again, those are the guys that I grew up with and played sports with my whole life. And we stay in touch. I wind up taking a semester off from school, and I start working a few of these different jobs. One, I start working selling office supplies. I would have to door knock 60 businesses per day and try to sell them office supplies. So I'd go into an office, and I would have to talk to the receptionist and get past the gatekeeper to the decision maker. And then I would find out, if you guys need any desks or cubicles or printers or ink and toner, essentially anything that could go into an office, I was selling it. And absolutely crushed it at that job. It became the number one salesman there after like 2 or 3 months of being there. And I learned a lot.
I'm sorry, did you say 60 doors a day?
Exactly. So I would have to go into 60 businesses per day. And we would start probably 9 a.m. and finish up by 4. So I would literally go into a densely populated office area and then go from one place to the next. And it would be anything from, say, like a small insurance brokerage to maybe like a pawn shop. And then right next to that is like a laundromat. And then after that is some other kind of business. So anything business, office, supply related. So I did that for a while, and I come across this company out in the kind of suburbs or the country of Atlanta, and they sell guns, like optics for guns, lasers, any kind of rifle scopes, night vision units, basically a lot of the stuff that the guys overseas at the time were using. I was selling it to the general public. They recruited me, and I started working for them. So I'd go to different gun shows and all this stuff across the country. This is after my sophomore year in college. And one day my buddy calls me. His dad was a big time builder that built a whole lot of neighborhoods prior to the recession. And he was building entry level homes essentially. And when everything went downhill, he had, 200-300 houses that he was sitting on. Anyway, lost everything. This whole thing just kind of blew up on him. But he was somebody that knew real estate. He knew the game, and he knew it well. So my buddy calls me. His dad is this guy. And he says, "Hey, man, I know you're selling these gun scopes and all this other stuff. You should come take a look at real estate." And I met with his broker, who was at Keller Williams.
It's kind of a jump, right, from gun scopes to real estate. I love it.
It was funny because they were both commission only.
That's all.
That was the only thing that was similar.
We in Massachusetts don't necessarily support any. I'm just kidding. I have a license, but Massachusetts, don't tell anybody around here because they would be pissed. But anyway.
Oh man, I believe it. I believe it. But it was commission only, and so I was like, look, I don't have anything to lose. I'm a young guy. I'm in school. I'm taking a little semester off, and I meet with this broker. She essentially sells me on the idea of getting into real estate, and I said, okay, well, why not? I'll try it out. And over the next couple of years, I enrolled back into college. I was finishing up with a finance degree. And then I had this set path. I had 2 things that I wanted to do. One is this was my primary focus, is I was going to graduate with a finance degree, move up to Wall Street, and do the whole stockbroker route. Number 2, at this point, I had already gotten my real estate license. I said, well, maybe I could stick around Atlanta for a few months and see if I like real estate, because I already have the license and I don't have to move. And if I don't like it, I can always change paths and just make that move up to New York anytime. So I graduate college, and this is, I think, 2012.
And congratulations, because that was a huge accomplishment for your lifestyle.
I'll tell you, Nick, I'm surprised they let me graduate. I don't know how I made it through, but we made it. Here we are. And I graduate and I said, okay, well, I'll try this real estate thing out for a bit and see how I like it. And right around that time, I didn't know how to start. I mean, I started specifically in retail. So I was at Keller Williams Realty trying to sell regular houses, residential houses to normal home buyers. So not to investors or wholesalers or flippers or anybody else. And everyone said, hey, you need to call your sphere to get new leads. And I said, well, I don't really have a sphere. All my buddies are still down at school, down at the bars drinking. No one's buying houses. And so I had to come up with a different way. So I started doing some research online and kept reading all these things. And it said, hey, start cold calling expireds for sale by owners and withdrawals or like canceled listings. I said, okay, I'll try that out because it's not too expensive. And right around that time, I started doing two things. One, in the morning, I would wake up and I would go to a neighborhood and I would first door knock, and I would door knock 20 doors. Sorry, not 20 doors. I'd get 20 contacts. So sometimes that would be 25 doors. Other days that would be like 60 doors, depending on how many people open the door. And then in the afternoon, I would cold call people, and I would call these expireds and for sale by owners. So my approach was like this. Here's how I would identify the neighborhoods. I would find neighborhoods that are somewhat close to me, probably within a 30-minute driving distance, and that had a good turnover ratio. Now, what I mean by that is more than 5% of the houses in that neighborhood were selling per year. And my reasoning behind that was if Bob and Sue down the street are selling and then the next door neighbor's selling, for some reason, it causes other people in the neighborhood to want to move as well. It's this
a chain reaction. Yeah.
And so I would look at a neighborhood. The way I'd figure this out is I'd go into the tax records. I'd find out how many houses are in this neighborhood. Let's say there's 100 in there. And then I would look in the MLS and I'd say, well, how many of those 100 sold in the past 12 months? And if it was, say, 5 houses, I would just take the 5% or 5 houses divided by 100 houses. That would be 5%. And I said, if the turnover ratio is 5% or higher, so meaning 5 of the 100 houses or more are selling over the course of the year, then I'm going to door knock that neighborhood because the chances of me finding somebody that's likely to move is probably higher than in a neighborhood that has maybe a 1% turnover ratio. That's how I would find them. I didn't have a whole lot of strategy. I would just pick the house that I liked and looked good and thought it would be easy to sell, and then mix that with a turnover ratio and then door knock them in the morning. And
did you find that when you woke up in the morning, I know you had already had a sales background, right? And even if we go back to your first sales job, when you woke up in the morning, did you find it difficult to work for yourself? Like, did you have to kind of get into a routine at some point, or how did you kind of morph into the sales position?
I didn't know any better, right? So a lot of people that leave a corporate, they say, well, now I'm my own boss. I got to do my own thing. And for me, I just didn't really know anything because I just worked restaurant jobs. I worked that gun sales job. And I cut grass as I was a little kid, worked at an ice cream place. So I never really had something to compare it to. But I did do a lot of sales training, which basically said, hey, you need to structure your day. The number one thing you need to focus on in the morning is lead generation, whether I'm a real estate agent or I'm an investor or whatever. I always have to find new business. It's kind of like a shark. You got to keep swimming because when the shark stops swimming, it doesn't breathe anymore. So that was always my thing. It was always like pounded into me from the get-go, like lead generation first, everything else comes second. So if my phone's blowing up, if someone's trying to get to me, if there's like this or that, whatever, I have to get my contacts first, and then I can do all the other stuff. And
nice.
So what happened was I started doing these cold calls, and I'm getting pretty good at it. I'm starting to convert. I'm starting to go on appointments, and I'm starting to get the sellers to sign these listing agreements. And people around the brokerage started to notice because I was a young guy. Everybody else in my office was 50, 60 years old, much older. And I was sitting in the hallway on one of those phones where you got to press the buttons and hold the receiver. I would just sit in the hallway on the carpet, and I would hand dial these expireds from like a printed out sheet of paper. And people thought I was like crazy. And so I kept thinking like, okay, so if I can talk to 10 people in 1 hour, if I can get 10 contacts per hour, how can I make that a little bit more? How can I maybe do 11 or 12 or 13 contacts per hour? And so instead of hanging up the receiver, I would like click the button and then dial the next number, and I would get one more contact an hour. And then I got a dialer that would auto dial, and it was a single line dialer, and I would get a couple more. Then I got a triple line dialer, which really took me through the roof. And so as I'm making these calls, this young lady calls me. She was a real estate agent. She calls me and she says, hey, I heard you're doing these expires, you're doing lead generation, and I'm curious how you do it. I'd like to learn from you. So I said, come in, let's make some calls together. We're making calls. I'll never forget. We're making calls together. And this is probably when I was a few months into it. And I always put my cell phone into the jacket pocket in my suit. And we're hitting the phones, and I'm talking to somebody on the other line. My phone starts ringing. It's just buzzing in my pocket. So I pull it out, look at it. It's one of my buddies calling. I silence it, put it back in my jacket. And phone rings again and again and again. It's all my friends, that close circle of friends that I told you about. They keep calling me. And that never happens, by the way. With my friends, it's like, they call you once and that's it. If there's like a double dial, there's like a problem, right?
Yeah.
And so I take the headset off and I said, hey, hold on just a second. I'm going to just walk outside. I need to take this call. I need to see what's going on. And I walk out of the office. I'm like, hey, man, what's up? I'm at work. I'm at the office. And there's my buddy Louie. And he goes, did you hear about Justin? And Justin's one of the guys that we grew up with. And I'm like, no, what's going on? I was with him a couple of days ago. And he goes, they found him dead in Kentucky this morning. I was like, what? That's crazy. Again, played lacrosse together, football, great guy, like comes from a great family. I mean, you would never guess, and he overdosed on drugs. It's crazy. Basically, the same thing happened again like 6 months later. Another one of my really close friends winds up dying as well. A very similar call. I was also at work. Get the call.
Oh, man.
This is wild. And again, like when I think about people on drugs, I think about like a homeless guy walking down the street. These guys, good-looking guys, always dated the best-looking girls, like stud athletes, just had everything going for them. And those like 6 months to a year, that was a kind of a weird time for me because I'm trying to ramp up this real estate thing. And I'm hitting the phones. I'm starting to get a little bit of success, but I'm still not making a whole lot of money. I'm living at home. Two of my best friends wound up dying. And the girl that I was dating down in Georgia Southern, we wound up going through a really nasty breakup. And so at this point, it wasn't like a day in time, but it was probably that span of 12 months. Everything just seemed like it was falling apart. And for some reason, I don't know why, but I loved it. Like I thrive in those environments when I'm in the gutter, when I don't have anything to lose. And it's like, I just need to focus on me and get better as a person. And I told myself, I said, look, I need to improve as a man and I need to grow and I need to grow up quick, like immediately. And so I just dove in head first into a whole bunch of self-development books, self-improvement. And I started to really focus on sales. And I started to ramp up sales a little at a time. And it grew. It grew from me making.
What year was that, Tim, when you started Reset?
It was 2012, 2013.
Okay, so you started to hit that reset button, and was there any one or two specific authors or self-help guys that you kind of were attracted to?
It's all the same stuff that we've all heard. So books like Think and Grow Rich, books like Cash Flow Quadrant. The One Thing helped me a lot, just about focusing on, like I mentioned, the lead generation. That was my thing, my go-to thing. How to Win Friends and Influence People, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. All these books that you go on Google and you just type in sales books, self-improvement books, they all come up. And so I started going to all these seminars. I would go to like Tony Robbins and go through all those programs. And that was like my thing of growth. And I always tell young folks that are getting started in the business right now, I said, look, in your 20s, don't worry about hitting home runs. Don't be trying to knock it out of the park and just because you're not some kind of entrepreneur that started this next online Amazon business, or you're a Forex Bitcoin trader, or you're a social media guru. Like, just put all that BS aside and just focus in your 20s on just learning and growing. I always tell the guys that start with us in our company, I say, work to learn rather than work to earn. As soon as you can set the money aside, it sounds funny coming from me when I like hire them to come work with me. But I'm like, look, I'm telling you as a friend, I'm not telling you as a boss, right? And so,
love it. We say learn to love the process for the process to love you back, right? And we have the same team culture, it sounds like, that you guys have, where it is about the money, but you got to do development first, self-development first, learning first. So I'm with you. Keep going. You're doing great.
That's exactly right. And that culture piece is key as well. Again, follow me on the gram. You'll see a lot of our culture and how we operate our office. Tim_Hardeman on Instagram. So then I got going. I started closing a few more deals and selling some more houses, built a team. Then half of them quit. All my fault because I wasn't providing enough value at the end of the day.
Ooh. So let's rewind right there. That's interesting. So you come out of the self-development, right? And now you've reinvented yourself. You've got a new mindset after all that shit with your friends dying and your girlfriend breaking up with you. And now you're back in the game trying to crush it again with lead gen. And how did you attract your first, even before they split up, but how did you attract your first team around you?
So I read this book. A lot of the guys in real estate now have probably heard of it. It's called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. It's like basically the
little red book
of retail sales, right? And it talks about building a team, how as one agent you can only do, 20, 30, 40 deals, whatever kind of business you're running. But there's a cap, and then you hire somebody on, like usually it's an assistant at first, and then you and an assistant can do more, and then you bring on maybe another assistant, and then afterwards you bring on buyer's agents, and essentially you build a team. That way you can leverage your time and focus on only the most dollar productive tasks and kind of outsource or sort of manage the rest. So I started building the team in a very interesting way, and I would highly recommend to most people that are trying to build a team on a budget and don't have much management experience to do it like this, and I'll tell you about it right now. One, I did it from just hiring agents in our brokerage, which was silly. I would hire buyer's agents in a brokerage, and then I would throw them into the office, and I'd say, here's a headset, and here's a bunch of internet leads. Call through all these. You'll probably get some appointments. Then you meet with the people, show them some houses, write some contracts, and I'm going to take 50-50 of the commission. And so, people would do it for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, and then they're like, Tim, I'm not closing any deals. I've closed 3, 4, 5 deals, and I'm not making enough money. And these are agents that would say it'd be like a single mom that has 2 kids. And so she's got a lot of responsibilities. And I just couldn't. Deep down inside, I knew I wasn't providing for my team at a level that I should have been providing at. And that really bothered me. And that's why I knew at the end of the day, that's why a lot of people left when our team fell apart in those initial years. Then we changed the structure a little bit. And this is where it gets fun. This is how we do it now. And you'll see on some of these live stories, on some of my posts, how we operate as an office and what our culture is like as a result of implementing this one thing. I started to focus very heavily on recruiting young guys and girls out of school that are still in college and built a very strong internship program. All right, the way that it's structured is like this. There's colleges, I'm sure wherever you're listening from, there's probably a college not too far from you. You go to that college or you go to their online board. A lot of these schools, it's called Handshake is the platform that they use. It's kind of like the Indeed or like the LinkedIn of the school, where employers can post job opportunities. So whether you're a real estate agent, you're looking to hire some people, or you're a real estate investor and you need to help with like mail out campaigns or pulling data or making cold calls or whatever other stuff we need, putting out lock boxes and signs, all the stuff, get some interns to help you out. Here are the benefits, and here's why I think this is like my favorite thing ever. So a lot of times you get access to very high quality talent. What I mean by that is if I post a job right now on Indeed or on monster.com and I'm looking for a telemarketer and I'm saying I'm paying a base salary of $32,000 and then with bonuses you'll probably make $60,000 total. it's somebody that is looking at that job, that's searching for a job right now, that needs to make money, and they want to get in, and just, it's very dollar focused. They're not coming from that mentality of, I'm here to work to learn rather than work to earn. With the internship program, you're paying these guys and girls $10 an hour, right? So they know it's not a lot of money, but they're not there to hit it big. They're there to learn from somebody that knows how to do it. So we built this internship team. It's 90 days is the internship term. They have a set amount of goals. Some of the goals are like, you have to get in by 7:30 a.m., third time late, you're going home for the day unpaid. You have a certain amount of contacts that you have to hit for prospecting. So again, whether it's retail or investment, we're always having to make appointments and make calls and send out text messages and letters and whatever else we're doing. So they help with the prospecting. And then in the afternoon, they're helping out with other things like putting out those lock boxes and signs and taking pictures of photos and putting them maybe into the MLS or wherever else. And what that does is two things. One, they're making a little bit of money while they're in school. More importantly, they're learning from somebody that is in the real estate business. And the other thing that I would encourage anyone that's thinking about taking this on doing is focus on their personal development, how you can help them become a better person and grow more. So we always set goals for them reading different books, different self-improvement books, sales books, and just helping them better their personal goals. So if somebody says, hey, I want to lose 15 pounds, we talk to them about, hey, maybe this is not a work goal, but I would love to see you crush that. And
let's set up a whole team goal, right?
It's awesome. I mean, like seeing these guys hit their goals and then get excited about it, and then hit team goals for prospecting or finding new properties or finding new sellers. To me, like when I step back from that and I look at it and I see them do it well, there's nothing like more satisfying than that. Like before it was like closing deals, like, you know, it's a lot of fun. But now to me, it's about coaching the team and watching them grow. And whether they stay with me or not, that's not up to me. If they choose to leave and do something else, like we celebrate, we're happy for them. And like, I can't wait to look back on the people that I've worked with over the next 10, 15, 20 years and see all the things that they go out to do, because it's going to be absolutely amazing. So I'd highly recommend building the team that way rather than just trying to hire a bunch of people from all over the place and then watching it implode and then having to rebuild.
That's awesome, dude. One thing you brought up, I was thinking about doing this, right? Not that you have any body fat on you whatsoever, but like we were going to do, if more than 2 or 3 people were like, I want to focus on weight loss, right? In our team, we're going to do like a team body fat reduction challenge, right? Where people weigh in once a week. It's like a 6 or 8 week challenge. And we all put up like $50 into a pot, and whoever wins gets that pot, but it's percentage of body fat. I don't know, something like that, right? Do you do stuff like that? Competitions, culture events, that sort of thing?
Oh yeah. We'll do like dialing for dollars. We'll have a little contest for who can set the most appointments. Whenever somebody sets an appointment, you're hitting this bell in the office. We have a nurture bell, was like this small bell that's basically a qualified lead. And the office environment overall gets crazy. I mean, we're in the office literally playing baseball. I think a couple months ago, I wound up driving. I bought a Harley last year, a motorcycle, drove a Harley literally through the office. I mean, like outrageous things happen that probably should not happen in there, but it's a blast. We definitely have a good time, and it contributes to people wanting to come into the office rather than like that job feeling of like, I have to go in today, you know?
Yeah,
like
totally.
They're excited. They're like fired up to get in the morning. And we get in early. We get in at 7:30. And a lot of these guys even work 12 hours, 13 hours a day while going to school full time, which is absolutely amazing.
Oh, these guys going to school full time too. So the interns are still in school.
The other benefit I'll say real quick to doing the internship program is a lot of times I can get them credit hours towards their major. So if they're a business major, I can get them like 3 or 6 hours for just working an internship, and they're getting paid for it. And I know when I was in class, I was just messing around my phone the whole time. I don't want to be in there. I just showed up to basically get the grade and to pass. So if I could have done an internship where I was learning about something I was interested in, getting paid for it, and getting hours, I would have done that in a heartbeat.
1,000%, dude. That's amazing. I mean, you've given so many tips right now for, especially, it's not just retail agency focused too, like the investors listening in, right? Tim mentioned a huge source for us has been interns at colleges. We don't utilize it the same way you do. You take it to a whole nother level, which I love, right? Like our interns come in and I'm going to take some tips from you because, we have them doing some stuff they like, some stuff they don't like, like filing and that sort of, like, that's not cool, but it's got to get done. But I love the culture that you've set up there. On the purchase side, let's talk about your attire for a moment. I've known you now for about 3 years. I have never seen you not in a suit. Is this a thing?
I sleep in this thing, baby. Look at this. I was told when I first started in real estate to dress for the job that you want. And I was trying to meet with a bunch of, sellers that have nice houses. So I was like, look, I'm going to show up. And at the time, I remember I was driving this old Honda Accord and I had the little crank windows and the paint was peeling off. And so I would park 3 blocks down the street and then I'd walk up to the house and I'd knock on the door. They'd open. They're like, where'd you park? I'm like, oh, I'm just down there. Anyway, let's go and take a look at the house.
I did the same thing with my Taurus, 89 Taurus.
I will say, though, I think presentation is everything. How we carry ourselves, first impressions are huge. And, I mean, to be 100% honest, we are judged every single day how we pull up to that house, whether it's to buy that house as a wholesale deal or a rental house, or if it's a listing appointment, how we pull up. If we pull up and there's trash falling out of the car, how is that home seller or that homeowner that we're trying to buy the house from, how are they going to perceive us as the buyer? I know a lot of guys will say, well, if you're wearing a suit, they think you have money and then it's whatever. But I've never come across that. The people that I meet with, whether it's me trying to go on a listing appointment for a nice house, or if it's me recently, a couple of years ago, we started buying houses and rentals, which we can talk about later. Or if it's me going to a house to buy it that's completely beat up and it's worth, $60,000, $70,000, and the level of the sellers is completely different. They've never said, I can't believe you're wearing a suit right now. Like, you're way too overdressed and you're trying to steal the house from me. I think first impressions are like key. And I would highly, especially for the young folks that are trying to get into it, just dress well, make a good first impression. And this thing is a ticket to, like, I promise you, wear a suit and it's going to get you a lot of good things are going to happen in your life. I know it sounds weird to say, but it's good for you.
No, it's good. I believe. In fact, I wonder if I can even pull it up here because I believe I saw on Facebook you went to the top. By the way, inspirational, man. So backstory, Tim and I are part of this mastermind, right? And we took our own visit to one of our colleagues' office in Richmond, right? Mr. Frank Cava's office. And while at Frank Cava's office, Tim sees this picture of Frank up on the wall. Shout out to Frank, by the way. He's at the top of Mt Kilimanjaro. And Tim looks at this video. Tell me if I'm wrong on this. You look at this picture frame, and I remember you saying both to Frank and to me in the office at that point, you're like, that's awesome. I'm going to do that, right? Yeah. And you didn't just say it. Like, in your head, once what we're learning about Tim, right? Once you commit to something, literally it's locked in. And we didn't really chat for like 2 or 3 months. And then I see a picture on Facebook, not only of you at the top of Mt Kilimanjaro, but you in the suit at the top of Mt Kilimanjaro.
That was crazy. That was 2 parts to that. So yeah, I think for me, when I want to do something, I'm like, man, that's awesome. I really want to do that. It helps to just be able to lock in and focus and just do it, even with trips and whatever else. But anyway, Kilimanjaro, yeah, that was in November, and we get to the peak. And I thought, before I went to Africa, I was like, how funny would it be if I get to the peak, the highest freestanding mountain in the world, and then I like throw on a suit or like bust out the suit and snap a picture up there with an American flag. And, we climb up there. This was like a 7-day climb. It was crazy. Like negative temperatures, winds like 30 miles an hour, like everything's iced over. There's sleet. And I'm like, the oxygen is so low, I'm like falling asleep. But sure enough, we get to the top and I'm standing there. I'm like, all right, I pop my backpack off and I start taking my clothes off. And the Sherpas, the guides, the porters, they're looking at me like, what is this guy doing? Like, you're going to get frostbite. I couldn't undo my clothes. My fingers were starting to freeze. So I call over these porters. They're literally stripping me down from all the North Face gear and everything. They help me put the suit on. I put the tie on, and I get up there holding an American flag in one hand and snapped it away. That's on Instagram too, so check that out on there. But, yeah, I mean, you got to have fun with it. You know, you got to have a good time with it.
Dude, that was impressive. Now, what does your retail team look like right now, or today?
The retail team is really tight. So right now we have 5 guys. And when I say 5 guys, I'm the only agent and everybody else is more on the support side. So I have 1 full-time, actually, I guess 2 full-time employees. One is on the sales side. Another one is on the administrative side, who actually started with me 4.5 years ago as an intern. He was just handwriting envelopes, and he's one of the best people that I know right now and awesome. I couldn't live without him. And then the other folks on the team, they do a lot of lead generation, like I mentioned earlier, putting out signs, lock boxes, dropping off envelopes, handwriting some of our letters, just things that need to be done, like you had mentioned before. Last year, myself as an only agent, and then having some of the team help out, sold about 100 houses on the retail side. And now the portfolio is up to, I don't know, maybe 21 or 22 houses that I own as rentals.
So let's go there next. So you've been on the retail side for years and years, and then something bit you, and you're like, this is great, but it's all transactional. And what about, like, was it something about maybe your mastermind, or what clicked with you?
Yeah, you know what I think did it is definitely the mastermind. I mean, Collective Genius has been just eye-opening. And Nick, I'm sure you talk about this on the podcast, but it's like such a high level, high caliber of investors in that group. And every time we meet 4 times a year. I always have so many takeaways. And if not something specific, but it's just the level of the people in the room where you're like, I need to step my game up. I bought 20 houses. That guy just bought 60. Like, how do I do that? Because I want that.
Yeah.
And so,
or even if you're buying 75 and 80 and you see another guy in California buying 300, you're like, what the hell? There's always another level, man. There's always another level.
It is absolutely amazing. And I think what did it for me on the investing side is here I am selling retail houses, making okay money. And then when I was, I think maybe 24, 25, me and my buddies, we took a trip to Germany. We were sitting in Berlin on the last day of the trip. It was sunny afternoon. We're sitting on the grass by this little monument for the Berlin Wall. And I remember this is the first time I said it. I said, I thought it before, but I was like, hey, I'm going to be a millionaire before I'm 30. Like, I guarantee you that. And I wasn't saying it to brag. I was just like, I just want to verbalize it because it's been on my mind. And so then I started doing this thing, which Gary Keller does. He's the guy that started KW, Keller Williams. He wrote those books, the Red Book and a few others. He did this thing with his friend where he would have a balance sheet, and him and his buddy would meet, I think it was like every month, at a coffee shop, and they would sit down and they would compare their basically balance sheet or their like net worth from the assets that they own. And it was like a little game for them, like, you know, who could have a higher net worth. And so I started doing that. And I remember, you know, I'd put in there, like, here's how much cash I have in my accounts. Here's like the house that I own. Here's my car. And then at the bottom, I'd have my liabilities. So here's how much I owe in my credit card or student loans or whatever else. And then I would subtract the two. And then at the very bottom, I'd put my net worth. And I think the eye opener for me was as I started buying these rental houses, which kind of happened accidentally. Like, I just bought one, rented out, and I was like, that's kind of easy. And then I just bought another one and a few more. And I was like, I need to just keep doing this. As I started adding these rentals, I'm doing this balance sheet, and I'm like, wait a second. Like, this thing's growing pretty quick, not from me making more money selling more houses, but from me having a whole bunch of equity in houses that I own, and they're cash flowing. It's just I didn't understand it at first. And then I looked at it again. I was like, this is where I need to spend more time. And so I started buying more and more houses. At one point last year, if anyone on here is interested in purchasing rental properties or note investing, and they're like, well, I don't really have any money to do it with, there's a fellow that I met through our group. through Collective Genius. His name's Eddie Speed, and he's like the king of seller financing deals. So I was like, Eddie, how does this thing work? And he's like, well, here's how it works. Here's how you do it. I did his little course. And last year I bought this portfolio of 12 houses. So as a quick overview, it was actually 14 houses. And I bought, the deal was $1.35 million for 14 houses, seller financing with $50,000 down. That's like nothing, right? 50,000 of 1.35 million is, I don't even know what that is, like 2% or something, with 6% interest and no prepayment penalty. Anyway, the deal was like, is a spanking deal. And the only reason that I was able to put that thing together was because Eddie Speed and his course that he does, it's called Note School. Some of you guys probably heard of it. Should definitely check it out if you haven't. And the way that I set it up is I bought those 14. Remember, the down payment was $50,000. I bought those 14 in stages. And the first two that I bought, I immediately wholesaled them. The first one, I wholesaled it for $25,000. The second one, I wholesaled it, when I say for $25,000, I mean the spread was $25,000. The second one, I wholesaled it, the spread was $43,000. So that's $68,000 that I made in wholesaling fees from the first two houses. And then I used that $68,000 to pay for the $50,000 down payment for the other 12. So it's like I bought 12 houses for free and got paid, I don't know, $18,000 to do it. I mean, it was like mind-blowing to me. And then I add those to the balance sheet, and I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I have to go on 30 to 45 listing appointments per month to make this amount of money over the course of a year, and I just bang this out with essentially none of my own cash. And now I own these houses, and they're all got renters in them. Like, I was like, this is amazing. And that's when I started to focus a lot more on buying rentals. I still think retail is great, and there's a lot to learn from it. But that's where our focus is slowly going into building a strong rental portfolio.
Very, very good. It's a different mindset, right? Going from transactional or service-based work into accumulation of assets for legacy and wealth building. And that's it had my tough start in 06, right? As you know, I've had a bunch of tough starts, but we did the same thing where I wasn't financeable, but I was starting to get the wholesale game up and running, right? 06, 07, 08. So while I wasn't financeable, I had to find a market where I didn't have to get loans for rentals. So I started, in the Boston area wholesaling, and then I started getting into rehabbing, all with hard money, right? And I would finally do like 4 here, and then I would take that money and go and buy like 1 or 2 small houses for like 20 grand out in Western Pennsylvania, right? Like, I just kept trying to multiply that, and I found, same as you, that accumulation of assets, as long as they cash flowed, like launching me back into a dangerous position when I finally was financeable again. So I congratulate you, man, on your move. And there's always going to be the need for service work and good agency, right? Or wholesaling. But while we're still in accumulation phase and we're buying them right, that's our legacy. That's what we have to leave to our families, right?
100%.
Good for you, my man. We are running a little short on time, but I wanted to ask, what's the best way people can get a hold of you? But wait. Now you can promote.
Okay, I'm a big fan of just social media all throughout, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, which I recently got on. Man, I don't think I told you this, Nick. I put up this video on TikTok. Have you ever heard of TikTok?
You need to check it out. TikTok. I'm old.
Nobody, like everyone on TikTok's like 12 years old, but it's about to blow up. I'm telling you, it's the next thing. Anyway, I put up this video last week, got 1.5 million views.
What?
It's unbelievable. I mean, to get 1.5 million views for any kind of, Facebook or Instagram or whatever, like, imagine how much money you'd have to spend to promote that and share it and this and that. 1.5 million views. But anyway, best way to get in touch with me is on Instagram. Send me a direct message. My handle is Tim_Hardeman, TIM_HARDEMAN. I read all of my DMs and I respond to all of them. So send me a message. Ask me any questions that I can help out with, whether it's about retail or it's about wholesaling, or if it's just about building a team, hiring people, the process, our interview process, the goals we keep them accountable to, anything at all that I can help out with. Or if you just want to connect and hang out, I'm cool with it too.
That's awesome, dude. We really, really appreciate your time today. We'll make sure we get all those links in the show notes as well. I'd also, I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind, shoot us a photo of the Kilimanjaro picture with the suit. We'll put that in the show notes as well.
I will.
Unless you just want to, you know what, guys, just go to his Instagram. It's right in there. You'll take a look. Go back to November. It took me off guard. I'm sure it will for you too. So, folks, thank you guys so much for taking part in another episode of the Shut Up and Do It podcast. We bring as much value as we can by sharing top quality guests. Tim was an amazing guest today, talking to our young people about how to make that choice and jump into real estate and how to really build their team and build that culture, and also some challenges along the way, right? And setting your mind to something and shutting up and doing it. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons below and to be notified when we have new podcasts that launch. They launch every other Thursday. And head over to shutupanddoitrealestate.com for all the episodes. As always, I will see you guys on the next episode. Shut up and do it.
A little bit sideways, but it'll work.
We are now recording.
All right, I'm pulling this thing off, and we're back. Just had to get a little slight taste of the mustache march. Never could grow any facial hair, so I figured, why not? This is the time to do it.
You and me both, brother. You and me both. That's all right.
Yours looks a lot better than mine, Nick. I'll tell you that.
3 years, man. 3 years working on this.